What's up, everybody? This is Hakim Isler and Tyler Stevens from Psi Games Talk. We are coming together today to discuss the after action or the after knowledge of the Psi Games. So we're just doing a recap real quick. All of the things we learned and everything. It was amazing. What are your thoughts on that, Tyler?
Oh yeah, just coming after the event, like we were just discussing, there's no expectation or stress as before as about a week ago, so it's a little bit different, but going into the event from when we were planning out, from the executive team and when we first met, 7-8 months ago, just connecting on the event and talking about it and seeing the planning of it and how it's developed into what it ended up being this last weekend was really incredible to see. And I'm really glad I was a part of it, man.
Yeah, I want to tell everybody, the graphics, the things that you've done. The volunteers are really the reason that this became so amazing. So when people are saying, like, for a first time event, never seen anything like this was so amazing. I mean, it's people like you with the graphics and the flyers and making sure we had stuff out there, like Alexandra, like my right hand woman D, making it happen. Sarah, Leo. I mean, it was so many different levels. Like, people were just really amazing and really put their heart and soul into this. And so I just want to thank you and thank everybody who was on the executive team for really doing, not just being talkers, but doers, like really doing the thing and making stuff happen. That's how we were able to make this such an amazing thing.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and shout out to the volunteers. You could just see that everybody,
oh my God,
not only was not only was interested in the event, but cared about the event, going well, and was just ready to pitch in anything. And I was just incredibly impressed by a lot of the volunteers. I got to know them. We definitely are going to invite a bunch of people back next year if they're open to come back. So, shout out to the volunteers for sure.
Yeah. Volunteers, shout out to you guys. And we got some gifts that'll be coming to you guys as well. Nice. So just to show appreciation for those folks. They were up there on the stage, up all times of night and day, like just picking people up from the airport. I mean, it's magical, man. It's magical. And that's one of the things I want to open this with, saying, like, this came to me and I denied it. Like, I was like, denied, talk to the hand. Because it was just so big, so massive. There was no way in my brain for me to connect how all of this was going to come together. I couldn't fathom it. But when I finally stopped saying no and I said yes, that's when my brain started to realize, or my inner self started to realize, oh, you've been training for this your whole life. You've been preparing for this your whole life. You've been going to all of these trainings, meeting all of these people, putting it all together. It just all connected in this very magical way. And all of the pieces started to come, and it birthed itself for a huge portion of it. I had to do stuff. It wasn't easy, but it really did bring itself into fruition. And when people look at what took place this past weekend, they'll know, like, that was a result of the energy that came with the thought and all of the people who started to pop up like magic as pieces of the puzzle to make this work and thrive. So yeah, it's no words for it. It's just something that you got to see and feel. And if you were there, you definitely felt it. You felt it. We had so many people shedding tears, like straight. I joke, and I was telling somebody the other day, it was like a Michael Jackson concert. It's like people were elated and crying, and it was all this emotion. I was crying. Everybody was crying. Right. It was just like everywhere. Every time you turn around, I hugged so many people who were crying. I embraced them. They embraced me. It was so much love and joy and compassion, which is totally different than all of the, not all of, but quite a lot of emails that I received about. That was people coming from fear, oh, this is, you trying to set people up to be stolen and, right. To be identified as these super psychics so we can, government can take them away. And it was completely opposite than that, and I'm trying to say, or a competition is going to bastardize or diminish these skills and these abilities that come from this very pure place. And I'm like, no, if we do this in an ethical way, if we try to look at this from a very energetic, peaceful way where we come together in a community and we embrace each other and we inspire each other, then we can have an event that's going to push one another to the next level. But it's not going to be out of anger, and it's not going to be out of ego. And that's what we saw. I remember watching that one piece, and we'll get to it later, but when Dahlia did her thing, even though she was on a whole nother team, everybody in the room was going crazy, including the other team. Even the guy who she was actually competing against came up to me at the end and was just like, bro, that was the most amazing thing I could hear. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. And he was like, and if we scored so differently, I was not on that level. And he was like, I was just amazed myself. And he was so happy for Dahlia. He's like, I'm happy that she was able to do that. And it inspired him.
Yeah.
It inspired him that next year he's going to work hard over the year, come back, and his level is going to be raised up. That's what we're talking about. And all this fear and all this other stuff. I mean, we didn't get that this past weekend. We didn't get that.
Nah. One of the funniest things too from that weekend was after Dahlia, she did her exercise, and then he was still going. Jimmy Church's comments of like, hey, like everybody, he was like commenting it was very funny. And I love the atmosphere to me too. Not only from the crowd, people were waving pom-poms and cheering and very positive, and it just felt like a really good sporting event. But one of the aspects that I really liked was were the commentators. So not only was this sort of like a competitive atmosphere, but it was also a learning atmosphere where people could really learn about some of these topics. If you didn't really have a understanding of this or any of this stuff, you could still go in and kind of learn what was going on. So remote viewing wouldn't have been intimidating. You have people kind of explaining it to you. The day before, there were some great speakers on the topic, like Paul Smith, Dale Graff was speaking. So there was a really good way to just get a good foundation of learning in this topics. And then there were also workshops. A lot of the feedback that I heard were people who were going into these workshops where people were having these experiences and doing these in-depth kind of meditation and deep processes that they were going through in protocols. So just a lot of appreciation from people who were at the event that really took the whole experience. There was a lot of other things that were going on around, that we had some sound bowl rooms and some light and sound kind of meditative booths and stuff like that. So there was a lot to do, not just listen to. There was ways to experiencing it. And just to see all of that kind of take place during the weekend of all the different things and experiences that people could have. And the competitive atmosphere, I think it's going to help in the future, because all of the people who competed in it are, from what I heard, want to come back and compete again. And not only that, I heard from a lot of people that as the competition was going on, they wish they would have participated. Not just because of the money, but because of during that, the competition itself, they were like, oh man, I wish I could go up there. Like the competitive juices start flowing, and you as a person who's interested and passionate about this stuff would want to and that was a cool thing too, is there were ways for the crowd to participate. So a lot of good feedback in terms of people who were there with experiencing different things and loving the competition.
Yeah. I concur. I think that's what it was all about. I mean, it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see people put it all on the line. And, we've gotten naysayers and people who want to, armchair quarterback from home and text say that there's this and this is fake, or this isn't real, or it should be this stringent, or for it to be scientific. But the reality is that they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything to usher in the new age. They're not doing anything to really help us and help inspire community towards the next level. And the way we do that is we have to step over the hurdle, and we have to just say we're going to do our best, and then we're just going to refine it over time. We're going to get even better over time. And one of the downsides that I feel very hurt by is that seeing how many people want to pull somebody down in these communities sometimes. We're supposed to have this very conscious community. And the minute somebody rises up who's trying, I mean, it's a lot to get on a plane, spend money, get on a plane, fly somewhere, go on a stage where you're going to live in forever as a video on YouTube or whatever, and put yourself out there and just try. And then you succeed. And then all these people want to like pop up and just talk crap and just try to tear you down. How can we usher in a new age? How can we become better people, better community? If that every time somebody tries to step up by putting themselves out there, that we rush to tear them down. We rush to say this Psi Games thing is crap, or these people are crap, or it's like, it's terrible. It's terrible. And that's not how we get ahead. We get ahead by doing our best, and saying, hey, you know what? That could have been done a little bit better, but it was awesome, and like, right. And I'm going to tell people, and I'm going to give that person kudos for just even being up there and trying,
Yeah, and I think too, it blends a lot to the openness and the flexibility in us adapting the Psi Games to the best minds in the field. Because to me, when you look at parapsychology and Psi research and exactly what we're trying to test out, the best minds were there. And we're going to take that feedback. For me, I have a good relationship with John Kruth from the Rhine Research Center, who's very much into the PK testing and, some of the more controlled setting and aspects, very much into the parapsychology side. And so, to take that and to improve the field, to use this as more research, to drive that so that the skeptics, look, there's going to be haters all the time, no matter what. It's almost like we were talking about this, like it's a good thing. It's almost expected that if you're going to do something that's going to make waves in the field, you're going to find haters. Haters are going to come, people that are going to be discouraging. And not only that, there's people who don't like people who are involved in the events. There's names that have, stuff in the field that they're involved with, or they do, that other people are just not going to like with it's like association there and trolling that way. But, for the position and the mission and the goal of the Psi Games, it's breaking barriers. It's revolutionizing the field of the research. It's going in the direction that it needs to go. This has needed to happen for 20 years. I mean, there's people that, I know you've heard, that are like, oh, this should have been Jeffrey Michelin. He said this should have been going on when he was back in, his day when he was doing it. So for him to be recognized at the event, being involved, being a judge, is just cool to see, the top minds in the field. And then you can pull him aside and then be like, hey, Jeffrey, like, what do you think? Like, how can we improve the event? And so like, we're doing that, and it's only going to get better, so that there's only going to be more haters, honestly.
Yeah, as we grow, right? There's going to be so many more haters. And and we were talking about this too, an easy way to kind of really, hopefully, well, we won't quell it, because, people they just want to talk. They want recognition. They don't, they want to be heard, I should say. Not necessarily, they don't really want to show. But, we've gotten some folks that have written in that claim to be psychic, and they're like, oh, this was cheating, and there's no way that could be done. And I'm like, okay, well, show up. like this isn't a television show that you can't get on. This is a opportunity for you to show us how it's done. If you feel like we're doing something wrong, come and show us how it's done so we can improve, right? Don't just hide behind your computer and just talk a bunch of crap. Again, it's just not. There's no room for that, in my opinion. I really want to see people improve. So if you're not really helping us improve, then what are you doing? What are you, because we're open to it. We're open to it. Like you just said, we have all these scientists and we have all these researchers there, and they're giving us feedback, and we're trying to make it better. We're trying to figure it out. There is, though, this weird dynamic I like, is that some of, sometimes, and I use this as a perfect example, Elon Musk. Elon Musk comes on the scene, he sells PayPal, he gets all his money, he comes up with this crazy idea that I'm going to be able to send people to space, you know, and goes to NASA, and they're like telling him like, who are you, dude? You're not like a scientist, or you don't know how to do that, you know? And then he's like trying to find rockets. He gets hooked up with some folks in Russia because apparently United States was still buying their rockets from Russia. He goes there. The guy changes the price on him. The guy told him like 3,000 a rocket. I mean, 3 million a rocket. And then when he gets there, the guy says like 14 million a rocket. And so he's like, all right, that's not going to work. So he gets on a plane. He starts itemizing everything that he knows from some people he hired to build a rocket, like what it would all cost. He comes up with this brilliant idea. You know, a rocket looks like a grain silo. So if I buy a grain silo factory, then I'll probably be able to like get the body of this thing made for cheap. And that's what he did, you know, and then he just kept going from there. And now you have this rocket that can take off, come back, land, and take off again. You know, it's just nuts, you know, right. And now the naysayers who like NASA, who were like, yeah, kid, get out of here, are his biggest contract. So, because he changed the game. And so I say all that to say is that sometimes the people who have been in the field for a very long time, you know, some suggestions are needed to be heard, period. I don't want to say that, I don't want it to come off that I'm not saying that. They need to be heard and you need to talk to them. But there also has to be room for innovation. And sometimes you could be doing something so long that you get stuck in what's known, but you're not trying to develop the unknown. And we are doing both. We're trying to develop the known, and we're trying to invent and develop the unknown as well, figure out what could be done, you know, whereas normally me and my training doing a CRV session, you know, a remote viewing, a controlled remote viewing session, it would take me an hour and a half. You know, that's pretty standard amongst most controlled remote viewers. We were asking people to do it in 10 minutes. Give us all of as much information as you can as fast as possible. Now, sometimes if you talk to some of the old guard or some of the folks that are there, okay, well, you know, that can't be done. It's not going to be enough information, you know, but we have to push we don't know if it can be done because nobody's ever stopped to say, let's try it. let's just see let's repetitively ask people to push themselves and see how much information they can garner from a tasking number in 10 minutes and just keep trying to get better at that. We've not done that. It's like, okay, well, the standard is an hour. That's what it kind of is. That's what you need to drop in. So if that's what you put as the pinnacle, then that's as far as people are going to push it, you know. Right. But when somebody comes along and says, oh no, 6 minutes is not the fastest that you can run a mile, 4 minutes is, then people at first laugh at you, and then somebody breaks it and does it, and then it changes the paradigm. It changes the whole idea about what could be done. And that's what we're doing. So it's this fine balance between recognizing where we are, where we come from, and coming up with new ways to figure out where we can go and how to get there. You know,
Nelson Dellis talks about what you were just discussing too, of, you know, the time that people were able to, you know, solve a memory task or something like that in a certain amount of time, in like a minute. And then it just was able to be beaten. You know, for remote viewing, I think that's the Psi Games, in terms of all the testing, the remote viewing, psychokinesis, precognition, dowsing, and remote viewing. What else what am I missing?
Mindsight.
And Mindsight. Mm-hmm. Of all of the games live, I really appreciated the remote viewing, and I really liked watching the remote viewing because of like the peek inside of the remote viewer's mind as they were going through the process. And I felt like that in real time was really interesting to see how everybody was kind of forming their process to build their remote viewing session. And, you know, I agree. I think, you know, as we get younger people involved in this, you know, younger people, I mean like under 40 or, you know, under 40 or 30, but, it will be quicker trials. People
Mm-hmm.
won't take that long of a time. And I think it's almost going to have to adapt to that, to the younger generation, because they're not going
Mm-hmm.
to want to spend that much time. It'll like being tuned out almost.
Mm-hmm.
So to adapt it, to make it almost quicker, and to make it so that it's kind of a little bit of pressure. That would be something, honestly, to test. And I think one of the Psi games could be used to test a lot of different variables along the way. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you do have a lot of time, or a day before, as opposed to only 10 minutes,
Yeah.
if the AI comes up with the target, or if the AI is a judge, or we have a human judge. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
variables too that I was getting feedback on like different ways to test it, that would add to a lot of studies that have been done before.
Yeah. Yeah. That is important. And what we do have a stage for too is technology. So
Mm.
as people create like Chase and these other folks that have like social RV out there and other platforms, as they start develop these, this is a great testing ground as well. you know, where not only we can try different modalities and different modes, different timelines, different ways to set up these games, we can also discover and test different technologies with people from all over the world with varying degrees of ability and see how that goes down. And so this is going to be a platform for all of that, for us to really explore and to grow and get to the next level. So it's only a positive in the grand, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things, is to really really push the envelope. If we look at how far we came, when like eventually we probably would have got to the moon, for people who believe we went to the moon.
Mhm.
But would we have done it as fast as we did when we had this kind of competition with Russia? Probably not.
Right,
Like,
right.
it was that spurred on this idea that we need to do this. We need to put all our resources, allocate. And again, that's a more warlike setting, but we're talking about how can we do that in a friendly setting where we're competing against each other and we're just pushing each other and inspiring each other to our next stages. So
Even
what was some of the
international,
yeah, even
yeah.
internationally. Yeah, that's it. What do you think of some of the ideas and feedback that we would get from that we did? What have you heard about some of the games and some of the stuff that's out there? Let's talk a little bit. I think that's going to be fun. Talk about, because you're on X, I'm not on X really, and so I don't really get to see that. I've seen some stuff pop up on Facebook and on Instagram, and people say
Yeah.
good things, and then there's been some weirdos that say some bad things. And so, what have you been getting?
Well, I think there's just it's a lot of curiosity, and a lot of
Mm,
mystery behind the event. I think because also it was a limited in a lot of the content that was released was just the stuff that we were posting from the Psi Games account. So I
mm-hmm,
think a lot of people are very intrigued about what happened during the Psi Games with the competition. I've been
mm-hmm.
in a couple of spaces so far, and just a lot of intrigue about what the games were and how they were competing. And a lot of people like the team aspect to it, that there was a team from the, I mean, there's like 4 teams that I've heard of already that are planning to come, and like form their own team. So
Success,
it's a good
right?
thing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah,
They're like, oh,
we've done it.
we're going to have a team from here and here. But, I think it just brings out people's curiosity about the event. And, I think with, there's some speculation type of things that happened during the event in terms of the Chris Bledsoe Skywatch, and then Dahlia. There's a lot of stuff going on online about the talk about that. But honestly, that those are just specific things that I think are going to be controversial, that are going to end up coming out of some of these games anyway, of just different events, not necessarily. But I think the core of it, the Psi Games and the competition and what's building in terms of the research, to me, a lot of positive feedback on that, of people who kind of understand this a little bit deeper, of what you're building. And so I think a lot of the feedback, and from hearing it again, it's the armchairs of like, oh, this is nothing. It's just like people putting on a show, something like that, where we're seeing it a lot different, of it's building really something that's original and on the forefront and what's kind of been needed in the field for a little bit of the direction of which it needs to go. And so, you know, for the most part, positive, and the couple controversial things, you know, there's a lot of talk, and of course, those are kind of shared throughout X and social media where they love that stuff. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's. I mean, you know, it's interesting because I've heard some good feedback, and you know, there were some challenges where some people were like, well, if you did the game this way or you did the game that way. And one of the things I ended up talking to one of the guy who helped me build a lot of the online games yesterday, and one of the things he was saying was that, you know, he's been in this field so long that you have to understand that scientists will be scientists, spectators will be spectators, you know, like scientists, everything has to be a science project. It has to be like super controlled and super refined. And I believe in that. I believe in the scientific method, but these tools are difficult to isolate. And that's why, you know, like sometimes you're doing remote viewing and something precognitive happens. And sometimes you're doing mind sight, but then you end up somehow, you know, seeing not just this side of the thing through your mask, your personal point of view, but all of a sudden you tap into something and now you're looking at it from all these different angles and you're like, whoa, what the hell was that? And that's like a remote viewing, you know, like I'm remotely seeing it from somebody else's perspective. And you're like, whoa, that's crazy. And only when you actually train in this stuff do you actually have those things happen. And what I find too is that, you know, there's not enough scientists who have actually done these things. And there's not enough doers who actually understand the science. Right. And so you have this disconnection there where people are having these ideas of what should be done, you know, but they haven't done it. So they don't know. Like a perfect example of this is the window in mindsight. So, you know, when you have first, there's this level of disbelief, like your brain needs to kind of feel like it, you know, you might have like as you're going through the process and what we call opening, you'll start seeing these little pockets open up where you could see through. And nobody really knows why that is, right? So quite often, like I did one school and they were like, don't look through the pockets, try to look forward. And because when you look at it, it closes, right? But I went to another school and they were like, no, look in that pocket. So if the pocket pops up right here in the upper left corner of my eye, then the temptation is to look that way, like turn your head so you can look that way. Well, a person who hasn't done this before, immediately, what do they say? Oh, you're looking out of the side of the mask, you know? And could that be a possibility for somebody who's cheating? Absolutely. But if you actually done it and you had it happen, you're like, no, actually that happened to me. I wasn't cheating at all. I actually saw through this little spot and I turned my head and then as you get better at it, you realize you don't even have to turn your head, you know, because it didn't matter. It's just, you know, you could just see. But all those things are just misunderstandings that people don't have because they haven't done it. So they just see something from the outside and then they're just like, oh, okay. You know, that has to be fake or this, that, and other. Scientists want everything to be clean. It's got to be pure precognition. You know, it's like, okay, well, or it's got to be pure remote viewing. And then it's like, well, if you reveal a target according to Ed May, then at any time that person sees what the answer is, it's precognitive. It's no longer a true remote viewing. Yep. You know, do we know a true remote viewing really exists? We can surmise because based on what I was told by one of my teachers, when Pat Price did really great remote viewings, he's this really great remote viewer from the past. He never got feedback. He died before that feedback became available. So was he seeing what the feedback was from the spirit realm? I don't know. Like maybe somebody can argue that. But for people who are dealing with what we know scientifically, okay, well, that couldn't have been precognitive because before the feedback was ever even available, he was already dead. You know, he had already passed on. So then it's not precognition, you know, but could it be both? Can you back and forth between both? Yeah. So then what is it then, right? You ask, okay, so then how do we set up a competition where the person never gets feedback, you know? And that sucks for the person who's actually, like doing it.
Sure.
Like, okay, I won, but how close was I? How far was I? What did it look like? Was I even did I halfway draw? I mean, that sucks for the person. So yeah, let's give them feedback. But then some scientists can argue, well, then it's not remote viewing, it's precognitive, And so it's like, oh, okay, whatever. And we had I had one of those as a feedback. I was talking to a scientist, and he was telling me how he was a little disappointed that that there was not disclosure. And I said, what do you mean disclosure? Well, we found out later that Dahlia's daughter is telepathic and they share this connection. And so when she was getting the colors, it could have been her daughter telepathically sending her the message. So it could have been telepathic, not mind sight. I'm like, first off, that's cool as hell.
That's still good. That's still good.
Yeah. I'm like, we're having a conversation about whether this person like read somebody's mind or whether they saw it with their eyes through a blindfold. Okay, got it. Let's keep having that debate. I'll have that debate all day. We're not actually debating whether or not these powers or these abilities are real. We're actually just saying which one is it. And that's how do we know? We're not really sure. She may not even be sure. She may not even be sure. I can tell you that there were times when her daughter was not looking at the target or the color that we held up. Like especially that last one where we were in the back of the room, we made the decision on the fly to hold up two colors at the same time. JB, who was helping me, was just like, hey, what do you think we just hold two colors up? I said, well, she already won the event. Now we're just having fun to see how far she can go. And we're at the back of the room. We can't go any further than this. So let's go for it. So he said, all right. Her daughter was sitting in like the front row. There's all these people standing up in front of her daughter. Her daughter couldn't see what was going on. I could barely see her. So how do they see me? We held up these two colors and without a hesitation, bam, bam, she says what the colors are. So you look at that replay and you see how fast she did it, and you see what the scenario was, and you're just like, that is outrageous. Right. So, was it telepathy? Was it mind sight? We can debate all of that all day long. And that's where this water gets a little muddy, where you're like, okay, well, how do we make this clean? How do we make a clean? Somebody came to me and said, hey, what if we had for precognition 4 different pictures or 5 different pictures, and you have to choose out of the 5 which photo shows up next? Right. And that's how we know it's precognitive. And maybe AI chooses which photo shows up next after you make the choice. So after you hit, go, then it chooses the photo. And then, after you hit the photo, then it chooses what photo, and then it goes. And the issue with that is this thing called displacement. Right. So now there's this whole science behind displacement. So the scientists are like, well, it's actually displacement and you're showing the person the wrong feedback. And it'll never be purely clean because these things we don't even really have a deep understanding of all of this stuff. And a lot of this consciousness stuff is like all interwoven, If you're paddleboarding or surfboarding, what skill is the most important? I don't know. Is it swimming? Is it holding your breath? Is it floating on the water? Is it balance? It's like, no, all that shit is important. You got to be able to do it all. You can't just be able to float and then say, I want to go surfing. Like, that's not going to be good enough. You got to have some good balance when you're on the board. You have to have body control, kinesthetic awareness, proprioception. You have to be able to swim. You have to be able to hold your breath. You have to be, all that stuff has to come into play. And so what do and they're all going to happen at different times. I don't always have to be holding my breath, but when I fall off the board and I go into the water, I better be able to hold my breath. And it's all, we just say, hey, that's called surfboarding. Which part, actually being on the board or actually all the stuff that leads to me being on the board? Well, actually it's all part of surfboard. Okay, cool. Then we can agree on that. So the same thing with the science. And the same thing with these games. Which part is what? I don't know. What's telepathy? What's not telepathy? What's remote viewing purely? What's precognition? There's all these guys debating on the wrong thing. We're just trying to usher in a new age, show people that they can do it, give them an opportunity to grow in it, give them an opportunity to test out how good they can do it, and push each other and inspire each other to the next level. And that's how we move forward. And then the scientists do what scientists do. They set up controls, they bring people in the lab, and they do it their way, the way they want to do, because they just want to prove just remote viewing is real over precognition. That's great. We're not here to prove necessarily what's real or this fine line between this one and that one. We're here to just allow people a stage to get better at these abilities.
Right. And anyway, that feels like that feels like an old, tired parapsychology thing. It's like, is it, is ESP? What is it? Is it telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition? So, and I think, we want to be able to, I've always been like, man, I've been like in parapsychology kind of circles for almost 20 years. And so I've always been like, man, it's got to be cool. The parapsychology and Psi it's never been a data issue to me. The evidence has been there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The issue to me, it's been a marketing, promotion, branding, all of that. And I think you could see that, especially with the telepathy tapes and what they were able to accomplish with recognition of this. And people are like, oh, telepathy, it started with the telepathy tapes. And they're like, no, it's just there's been a lot more research done, but I think there's different ways that people are going to like gain awareness of this. And it's got to be something that gets attention, and it's got to be gets people's attention. And the old journals, and read a journal article and read all of this research and all this stuff. People want to experiencing it. They want to experience it live. They want to see it for themselves. They want to be brought into the fold of what's actually happening so they can understand it. And I think that it's a new perspective, a fresher way that people are going to be able to understand this. And just what you were talking about earlier. This feels like a recircling. It's like coming back full circle to the old days of parapsychology, where for the Rhines, they would be getting reports of experiences of all these different types of experiences. So, qualitative research where they're like, okay, like all these people are experiencing this like precognitive dreaming thing. And so then J.B. Rhine would take those and research precognitive dreaming through these people's experiences. So they would get together all of these people and then research it. I think just like what the Psi Games are, it's getting the best researchers in a room researching the people, the best practitioners of this, the best and most skilled people who are experiencing this and should want to be able to be studied. Just like we're talking about, if you're saying you can do all this and you're this great psychic practitioner and you can do all this, fantastic. Show up to the Psi Games, start participating in the research and contributing and showing that this is actually legitimate through your ability, like show everybody what it is. It's like in any other competition. If you were doing martial arts or sports, the best of the best want to compete with, the best out there and show that they are the best. So I think bringing that atmosphere and that platform to be able to happen is really one of the most, if not the most important thing for the field of it right now. So props to that. And, I'm excited.
Yeah, I think what you said is key. And we've said it before on multiple channels, is that, research is warranted. It's needed. It's great. But that's not going to get us anywhere. To keep trying to prove it to people, that's not going to get us anywhere. What's going to get us somewhere as far as the belief in Psi abilities and what can be done is us actually making it relevant to the people, right? And just nobody is going to read your paper but other nerds, right? So like, and the nerds aren't going to make it relevant to that. They're just going to make it relevant to more nerds. And that's a good thing. I'm saying nerds is a good way. Because I am a nerd as well. It's just, but I've had so many conversations with people. One friend in particular, I just talked about this not long ago on a podcast, where he's trying to convince me and tell me why these abilities aren't real, especially remote viewing, and how the reason the military shut it down was because it garnered no information. And I'm like, that's not true, bro. Like, here. So I sent them these papers, And, thought he does a lot of traveling. I sent him like YouTube videos and stuff. And I thought he would just take the time to at least watch the YouTube videos. So 2 months go by, I reach back out to him. We're on the phone. I'm like, hey man, I never got any feedback from you on those things. I say, well, I don't have time to sit down and read that stuff. Okay, then like, where's your information coming from? Where's your opinion coming from? If it's not coming from the factual information that's out there, if you're not researching the information that's available, and then when somebody gives you the research that's been done on the thing that you're hard line certain that is true, which is it does not exist, but then I give you counter information and you're not even willing to look at it, then you're the problem. And it's because, and really that's not your fault. It's just that it's not relevant to your life, And so how do we make it relevant to your life? Well, guess what? If his kid was involved in it or really thought it was great, he'd be interested. If his wife was into it and thought it was great, she'd be interested. He'd be interested. If the people around him get interested through the various channels that they can be interested in it, that's when it becomes more real to you, because it's more personal to you. And what people are interested in and doing that are in your close-knit circle becomes of interest to you. And the only way that happens is to make it more public, make it exciting, make it something that people would sit with some, Haagen-Dazs ice cream at the end of a long, rough night and watch on Netflix, like that's when, and then they say, oh my God, or when they're just driving for 2 hours to some beach, and they're like, what's this podcast? Telepathy tapes. Let me listen to that. And then they're like, whoa, I didn't know any of this was real. That blows them away. It changes it expands their mind. And now they're willing to dive a little bit deeper into the understanding of what's going on there. And it opens their mind to those possibilities. That's where we succeed. That's how we bring it forward. And, I'm hoping that more people start to really understand that and see that as we continue to grow in this particular aspect.
No doubt. And I think just going forward, being open to adapt, to the people and researchers in the field, being excited about the research that's coming and the competition in it. And there's only going to be good things, a lot of feedback going forward. I think it will be interesting to see in development. Let me ask you a question. What are your goals for the next Psi Games? Do you already have anything just based off of the feedback that you've got?
Yeah, so we're going to step each one of the games. And I already kind of had this, but people didn't know it. And so they were, for instance, the remote viewing, we're trying to look for, okay, what's some better ways that we can do it? Well, we can make the AI grading system a little bit more enhanced. We can have people's names at the bottom of their screen so judges know who they're looking at when they're looking at them. So we could do stuff like that. So those will be some pluses. When it comes down to mindsight, one of the things I would love to graduate to is that you have the blindfold on, but then you have like a piece of cardboard paper or something in front of you. So that negates anybody saying that, oh, they're peeking around the mask and so on and so forth. And that would be great to have. That would be, but again, we have to start somewhere. We couldn't just start there because a lot of people are really just understanding what mindsight is and starting to break into training in it. So now that we have a stage that we've done this on and people got to see like Dahlia do the thing, then they know not only is that possible, but the next stage of that might be possible. So the Dahlias out there, I already know, I've talked to some people and they already have the Dahlias out there in the world who, and people like her who are training to the next stage, which is to make sure that they can do it with a blindfold on and then like a sheet of paper in front of them or a bag over their head or whatever the case may be that they're going to use to obstruct them. I've actually personally done that. Now I'm not super consistent, but I've been able to sit with a blindfold on with a screen up in front of me and a color behind that black screen. And then I'm able to tell you what it is. Now, I can tell you honestly that I didn't actually physically see it, but I had a knowing of what it was, which again, where's the blurred line, right? Is that remote viewing or is that mindsight? Right. It's like, is it local perception in a remote viewing style way, or is it mindsight at that point? Well, I wasn't seeing it, so you'd say maybe it's not mindsight, but it could be this like remote perception or this local perception. So either way, anyway, my point being is that that's one of the things that we would love to do. When we comes down to psychokinesis, somebody was saying, well, if you're doing true psychokinesis, you don't really even need your hands. Yeah, that's true. But for a person learning or just breaking into the field, the hands is part of the restructuring or the dissecting of your belief system. Your belief system, how you've been taught, is that you have to engage things with your hands, right? You want to open a door, you got to grab it with your hands. You want to type, you got to touch it with your hands. You want to eat, you got to touch it with your hands. So then to just say, hey, just stop using your hands, you're going to just start doing stuff with your mind. I've not done that before. I don't even have any foundation of understanding in that way. I need a bridge. Got to give me something. Okay, well, let's start this way. Let's use your hands, put your hands next to it. Imagine that there's this force swirling through your hands that's going to turn the wheel to the left. Imagine there's this force that's flowing through your hands that's then going to stop it from turning counterclockwise, and now it's going to make it turn clockwise. Oh, okay, now that's a happy medium, because I know how to use it feels natural to use my hands engaged in some way to make something happen, even if I'm not touching it. Then once a person realizes it's possible, then you take the hands away. You say, okay, well, what would it be like if you didn't use the hands? What if you just thought about it? Now they know, because they know they haven't been actually touching it this whole time, but it's still a smaller step than to go just straight from, I can't do this to like, now I'm doing it with my mind. It gives them an intermediary. It gives them a bridge. And then you say, okay, now you know that it can be done. Let's take it up a notch. Let's do it without your hands, So yeah, it would be great to do that. But if you haven't trained in this, of course you start saying crazy stuff like that, because you haven't gone through the hardship of actually developing this skill set, right? When you actually have to develop this skill set, you have to go through a training program. When you go through the training program, you recognize that that's not where it was. I was military, and I went to executive protection school before that to become a bodyguard, graduated with honors. So when we learn how to shoot, you stand in front of the target, you clear your holster, you bring your hands together, you push them out, you press the trigger back, you mind your breath, you get your sight alignment, and so on and so forth. And you do that a lot. But you would never actually go into combat like that. You'd be dead in 2 seconds. Once you actually learn how to fight with a pistol or a rifle or whatever, they say, get cover, acquire your target from behind cover,
right.
Then you shoot. It might be in this very awkward position where you're shooting under a car, or you're shooting here, but you still got to maintain these fundamentals. But you have to start somewhere. So you start from the basic and you work your way up to a point where you can now use cover. Now you can move and fire on the move. You know how to control your breath, so you can do things while you're running, or walking. So, there's a way you roll. One of my instructors used to say, roll your feet, heel to toe. So there's a way to keep your knees bent, move at one level the whole time. So you minimize the bouncing as you're walking and firing at the same time. Gives you a better shot group. So you don't start that way though. Come on, dude. Imagine if you just first day, here's a rifle. All right, now I'm going to start shooting at you. I want you to shoot back, run, do all the stuff. They'd be like, what? This is day one. I don't even know how to load this thing. What are you talking about?
What I thought of though is the Psi Games, the first one, we had to kind of go by the standard that was set by the tests that were already in place.
Yes.
In a few years, I could see 100% the Psi Games being setting the standard of what is set for testing. So one of the honestly the most surprising part of preparing and seeing the development of the Psi Games was that you and Mark were able to get all of the tests done and the remote viewing tests. Like, bro, I was surprised. I was like, wow, this is great. Telling me that a couple of you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have the test, whatever. I'm like, oh man, I don't, but seeing that, shape out. And I think this next coming year to get that process to where people now, they know about the Psi Games. How do I participate? How do I get involved in it? There's going to be a, more structured way. We're going to organize it. We've got a lot more in place on the back end. We're not like scrambling to develop it. Mm-hmm. So, to be able to recognize a lot more people and to be able to be prepared for more participation of perceps and people who are going to try and get involved with the Psi Games, I think is going to be really looking forward and going to expand just the reach and the impact of it. Because, this was just two within the US, and we've worked with other people involved in it, around the world in, organizations that are ready to jump on board and get this international. And I know your motivation behind of doing Psi Games International is getting that too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the goal. And this isn't me trying to say that. Again, I want to be clear, because you say things I'll say things a bazillion times, and it's still somebody will be like, "Oh, are you saying that research isn't important?" No. What has happened already? I've gotten several different researchers. I don't want to say them because maybe they don't want to be known, but several different research groups that have now approached people who was at the Psi Games to do research.
Nice.
Because they didn't know they existed. Right? That's the point. The point is that these people are out there doing stuff, and we could be learning more, but it has to be on their terms. Like, this isn't like stealing somebody. It's like giving you an opportunity to find somebody you can approach and say, "Hey, would you be willing to come in the lab so I can figure out what's going on here?" And those people are like, "Yeah, I'm okay with it." And their nerves, another thing that happens that I've heard in past research is that it just, it gets boring and people get stage fright and so on and so forth. Well, we're trying to build all of that into the Psi Games. The type of person that comes out, that develops out of Psi Games, is the person who doesn't care if there's a multitude of people, sounds, distractions. They can do it no matter what. That's what we're asking of them when they come into the Psi Games. I mean, we watched Dahlia on stage doing the thing with, I don't know, hundreds of people in the crowd with pom-poms standing on chairs cheering her on, and she's still doing the thing. That's a hard person to break when you take them into a scientific lab and say, "Hey, now we're going to watch you." Oh, okay. Yeah. I just came from a place where I had hundreds of people watching me and cheering, and I did the thing. So you guys watching me is not, you two people watching me in a room is not a big deal, and you don't have to be quiet, by the way. You can scream and do whatever you want. Eat your cheeseburger. I don't care what you're doing. I'm still going to
at one point, Ryan, the guy who who won, I think he won PK. He was like, get it up. He was trying to get the crowd even more hype. So he was loving it. And I did his the little interview too. I talked with him before, and he was like, he's BMX rider, so he's into adrenaline. And it was really interesting to see people's process too of how they got into their zone and the different methods that they use. And I think just the networking and collaboration that can come out of that, of just those people talking, like just that group of people who are competing, being able to network within themselves and saying, oh, like try different methods and stuff that works. And I think just people who are interested in exploring their own psychic potential can learn a lot from just going to the Psi Games and just talking with people.
Yeah, that's for real. That's part of why we did it. We wanted to have researchers and different teachers and mentors that are there, so that people have a good foundation that they can start with if they're looking for certain teachers and they're like, "I'm not sure, I really would like to do this, but where do I go?" Well, you got the best in the room. And then we wanted to inspire people by showing them what it looks like when people actually are up there doing the thing. And then we wanted to give people this kind of good ethical foundation. So we had in scientific backing. So we had these two panels, and the panels were about ethic discussions and scientific discussions when it comes to these abilities, to make sure that we have that built in there. So I'm actually working on, for next year, we'll actually have a card, and this card will have like a code or something, for us to kind of follow, as we grow, to just make sure that if people don't have something, they have something. And that we come forward with being an environment that says, hey, these are the principles we're standing on, Matter of fact, if you don't mind, I would love to say them while we get them solidified in history. I've been working on a book, so I think I told you that. So that book is going to be very prominent. So it's I'm calling it the Unity Manifesto. All right. And so it goes this way. It's we believe every human carries a flame within, the eternal fire of the cave of the heart, where our true self rests in direct connection to the divine. We know that fear and division are illusions designed to keep us small, scattered, and silent. We choose instead the path of unity, trust, and shared empowerment. We remember that in ancient times, community was life itself. To be exiled was to face death. To belong was to thrive. The same is true of our spiritual evolution. Alone we may survive, but together we can strive, we can soar. We affirm that friendly challenge and shared discovery awaken our highest potential. When one rises, we all rise. When one breaks a barrier, the horizon moves for everyone. Here's what we reject. We reject the false belief that awakening must be hidden in the shadows. Our gifts are not dangerous when grounded in ethics. They are dangerous only to the systems that profit from our disempowerment. We are committed to these things: protecting and nurturing the flame in ourselves and in others, using our abilities with integrity, compassion, and courage, celebrating each other's breakthroughs as fuel for the whole, meeting fear with connection and division with unity. We are not isolated sparks, but a living constellation. We are the phoenixes who rise together, carrying our fire into the open sky until the night is ablaze with possibility. This is our vow. I will tend to the flame. I will honor your flame. And together we will light the way for everyone. That's what I've been working on.
Nice, man. That was powerful.
Yeah. So that's so going. It was just I had these great meditations since we've come back from the Psi Games, just thinking about it, and I'm like, I've been saying all of these things and all of these videos I've been trying to, and this was my way of coming with a short, concise way of really getting that to people, right, and setting the stage for who we are and what we're doing. It starts with me. And again, I don't want people to hear me say that in this kind of negative ego, like me, it's about me. But this download came through me. I put my ass on the line to find and make this happen. My friends, you and the others, all of you guys came together under this idea. And we have to set the stage as to what it is that what we're really about. And because this message came to me, I have to be the one to help set that stage. And then we all can build on that. You get what I'm saying? Right. And so that's really where the goal is. And so I'm saying that one of the things I saw at the Psi Games is people kept saying, man, you're so calm. You're so you're so calm. And then they started saying, hey, the whole team is calm. Like, I was talking to that Tyler guy, he was so calm. I was talking to Leo, he was so calm. I was talking to Chris, he's so calm. Like, the whole event's kind of calm, like, and it's what it meant to me was like, yeah, like my energy is reflected in the team's energy, is reflected in the environment's energy. And then people had confirmed that. They said they've been to other events where the person who started the event was kind of chaotic or mean or whatever. And then the team kind of seemed mean and chaotic. And then there was all this like kind of weird, chaotic and mean stuff happening in the environment, you know? And so that's why it was really important for me to come up with this kind of manifesto, this ethics, and just say, hey, we're going to have this small thing that we really promote at every event that just kind of gives us some ideas. It lets people know what we're about. You know, what the Psi Games is supposed to stand for. And then because people will try to twist it real quick. They'll try to, if you don't have something, then people will start coming up with their own something. Oh, the Psi Games is about, you know, seeing who is a psychic badass and who else sucks, you know, like, and if we don't have stuff out there then that could become our moniker. If enough people catch on to that and start running with it, then that's who we are, you know, as much as if I come out retroactively and we start saying, oh, yeah, that's not, whoa, wait a minute, that's not what we are ever about. Well, where's something that proves what you're about, you know? It'll make it look like we're just coming as an aftermath thinking about that. No, we're going into it saying this is who we are, this is what we're about, this is how we want to bring people together. And, you know, you naysayers out there can talk all the crap you want, but these are the principles and foundation we stand on.
Right. Love it, man. And, you know, for me, a lot of it is looked at to me as like a great job of preparation and synchronicity. You know, those two things combined.
Yes.
I think, you know, that's what kept my calm is I knew how much we prepared, you know, and also the synchronicity of all the stuff that came together, which I think was special. And you could really realize it of just all of the people who came to the event who just kind of showed up, you know, Joe McMonagle, Leslie Keene, all of these people just kind of, you know, it was like, holy cow, where are, you know, all these people. And so it was just a great, I think people wanted to take part in the event. And that feeling was a great networking and great environment that I think going forward is just going to help the field, help the you know, the experiencers, people who are very interested in this, researchers, creators, everybody who's involved. And so, man, I'm just so grateful to have been a part of it and to have been there, you know, because, you know, being sold out was fantastic as well. But we wanted to open it up to more people next year, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
So looking
next
forward
year,
to
we're going to aim
everything.
for 1,200 people. That's the goal.
Right.
1,200 people next year, which will double what we did this year. And, you know, and again, that's about how many people can we touch and spread the word and then have, you know, their communities join with ours and we just all grow together and we rise up together, you know, like that's, you know, that was another thing that was really good. Wasn't it cool to see all of the different groups?
Right.
You know, you had all of these different remote viewing groups, mindsight groups, you know, dowsing groups, like all of these different groups that normally aren't doing stuff together. Right. All come together under one roof just to kind of explore and work together. And and I saw those groups forge. I watched how several of my mindsight instructors who had been doing mindsight for 30, 40 years, 20 years, who had never talked to each other. So you have like 3 or 4 different people doing this thing, who've been doing it for 20 or more years, and they've never, ever reached out to one another. Right. Then now I watched as one point, well, first off, I saw several of them had photos together. And then I watched as they were eating together and chatting. And I'm like, bro, what are we talking about? This is it.
Best friends. Are we best friends now?
Exactly. Do you like karate too? It's like, bro, that's it. You know? Yeah. No longer me doing my mindset over here, you doing your mindset over there. No, we're all hanging out at the same table, discussing ideas and how we came to be into this space and how we can see what our plans are for it to go forward and see how we can help each other out. That's the unity we're talking about. Yeah. You know, who knows if one person was thinking one thing and had this great idea, but was missing this one piece. Now all of a sudden they're talking to this other instructor and they are that missing piece. They were been working on that missing piece. And they're like, oh man, if we put our heads together, and we add these two things, we solve the problem, and now we can move on to the next stage of this. And so,
dude, that's been a huge thing in the field too, is in parapsychology. I've felt like is that people, like groups, it's almost been a little bit of an isolation factor where people almost feel like they're working on stuff by themselves and they don't have anybody to collab. And events like just like the Psi Games, man, it gets everybody together so that, just like you're saying, you're like, oh, we're working on the same thing. Let's work, let's go at this thing together. And I think there's been a little bit of it, there's been a little bit of an underpinning of like competition between researchers and people, just like you're saying, in the remote viewing field who might not meet. But I think this event is really going to foster collaboration and encouragement for just all across the board, that we're all in this together. We're all helping the field. We're all trying to contribute to this. So yeah, man, that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, right there. All that.
Well, this show is going to be exciting. I know, we're going to try and get some people on as much as we can. We really appreciate all the supporters, all the subscribers, everybody, supporting the channel. We're going to try and bring some more people on. I know, for the future of the Psi Games, we're going to have some great speakers. Can't even preview anybody yet, but I know there's going to be some great people, already has expressed interest and probably have committed to, a few great people. So, thanks again, dude, and appreciate the conversation. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and yeah, we got plenty of work to do. We've done something big, and we've done something magical, and now we have to keep it alive, and we're gonna have to keep watching it grow. Just this is our child. We're gonna see it grow to the next stage until it's an adult and doing its own thing. And one day you and I will be in our 60s, 70s. Well, I'm not that far from 60 now, I guess. We'll be in our 70s and 80s, and we'll be sitting back like, hey, remember when?
We're rooting our kids on in the Psi Games. You're like, exactly.
Yep. And I make that joke. I've been saying that joke all week. Like, my daughter who was there, who's 7 months old, she'll be 20 years from now, she'll be 20, and she'll be at the Psi Games, probably hosting it with your kids. And they'll be like, yeah, when our dads were involved in this, they had this PK thing, and they were trying to get this little wheel to just move one space to the right. Or one space to the left. But today's challenge is how many cars can you make float at one time?
Right. Yeah,
and so John Jackson over here is only able to make 2. He's going for 3. Yeah. Let's see if he can do it. Oh, nope. All right. But Sarah Jones, look, Sarah has 5 cars floating at one time. It's just like we just see how far these things could go if we really truly allow people to believe in themselves and then aid in their growth and their development. I mean, sky's the limit. We've been, so many people in so many different walks of life have been saying we're limitless if we really put our mind and our heart and our souls into it. But when you really have conversations with people, it becomes very apparent that even though people may say that, they don't always really believe it.
Right.
They feel limited, even though they keep saying, oh, we're limitless. Then the minute you try something, they want to limit you, They want to say, oh, spaceships can't, re-entry spaceships can't be done, And it's like, wait a minute, are we limitless or are we not limitless? Because if you're saying that we are not limitless or we are limitless, then give me the benefit of the effing doubt and help me.
Right.
Don't try to shoot me down, and then we can see where we can go from there.
Right on, man.
Yeah. Don't make me cry, Tyler. Don't make me cry.
Right. Hey, come on now. No, well, I thanks again for the discussion, bro. And I'm looking forward to a really exciting year, not only in the Psi field with you, just on the projects that we're working on, but for the Psi Games coming up. It's in Charlotte. I tried to get it to Raleigh. Everybody wasn't able to. I was like the only one fighter in Raleigh because I live like right in the backyard. But love that it's in Charlotte. I think that it's going to be a fantastic event, man. And I'm still feeling the buzz from the last event too.
Me too.
Right.
Me too. It's been hard to come back to work. I've just been like wanting to literally drop everything. And I normally would be at work on a Saturday, but I called out. I was like, hey guys, I need you guys to step up and cover for me because I just don't want to do it. And I've been working on this book, and I was like, and I don't even know if I have time to work on a book, but it's just been flowing out of me because the energy's so there. And, I got that manifesto and I've read that thing a bazillion times. It's just so speaking to my soul. I'm like, what? That came out of me. Like I'm just like, I'm blown away. So yeah, I'm energized too.
Nice, man. I'm looking forward to that book. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's coming. It's coming. If I had my way, I probably wouldn't sleep for the next several days.
And just bang it out. Yeah, dude,
yeah.
While it's hot, while the the iron's hot, just strike it. Just get it all the content out. I feel that just with like music sometimes too, but like tap into that higher consciousness.
No doubt.
All right, man. Brother. Well, yeah, dude. Thank you so much, and until next time, brother.
All right.